Hey everybody, Jennifer Moore here with the Sewing Report. I'm working on a quilt right now and I really wanted to take a few minutes to talk about an issue that I know people who sew and quilt deal with all the time. And that's being asked constantly if they sell things. Now, I've been sewing and quilting for about 3 years, and at least once or twice a week, someone who's unfamiliar with sewing or quilting asks either if I'm going to open up an Etsy shop or if I sell quilts. For some reason, people assume that if you quilt, you must sell them, right? And I'm here to tell you, the answer is definitely not. I've never sold a quilt in my life. I don't have an Etsy shop. I don't plan to open an Etsy shop. And I've really only sold something I've sewn once. And to be completely honest with you, I really felt quite uncomfortable about it. And it was not the best experience for me. So I want to talk a little bit about pricing handmade items and also just the time it takes to make something like this. This quilt is probably going to take me months to complete. I've got some interesting plans for the quilting. While the top didn't take me very long, I think the quilting is going to take me months. Again, I only have like a few hours a day to sew, maybe. So because I have a full-time job, I'm not really able to dedicate as much time to sewing and quilting as of course I would like. I first sort of became notable to the quilting scene when I wrote an article last year called Quiltonomics, the Real Price of Quilts. And I wrote it because during my time talking to quilters and interacting with people who weren't familiar with the quilting industry at all, I noticed there was this real big disparity in pricing. Like you would see someone trying to sell a quilt for $2,000, and then you would see someone else selling a quilt on Etsy for $75. And I was interested to find out, why are these people pricing things so low and why are other people pricing things so much higher than those other folks? So I talked to a lot of people who were in the quilting industry because it was still kind of new to me. I've only been doing it a few years and I don't work in the quilting or sewing industry, and I also am not really in that marketplace. Again, I don't have an Etsy shop. I don't really do craft shows or anything like that. I only sew things for my personal enjoyment, for myself and family and friends. So I interviewed several people. I could not believe they actually were willing to participate in an article for someone they didn't even know, but several people were. And out of all of the quilters I talked to, only one of them, Susie Williams of Susie Quilts, actually sold quilts at the time. And I'd actually kind of singled out Susie because she made really high quality, interesting quilts, and I felt her pricing was a little more in line with the time that it takes, the time and the effort that it takes to put into a quilt. And actually, since that article was written last year in February, she has pretty much stopped selling quilts. She's more gone the route of pattern designing and also doing like the celebrity type of thing, which I think is, from what I've noticed, how a lot of sewists are actually make their money. It's by teaching classes, it's by designing patterns, writing books, designing fabric, that sort of thing. So very few people that are successful in the quilting and sewing industry actually sell sewn goods. There's a lot of people who do sort of a cottage industry thing where they, have a little shop and they sell things they make. But even, if you do become more successful in the Etsy world, those folks do seem to tend to go towards more of like a, not full-scale mass production, but at that point they're hiring help, like the woman from Freshly Picked, or that other woman, Melissa, who founded the company, I think her name was Melissa, Grace and Lace. Both of them were on Shark Tank, both of them did extremely well, and of course, at this point in time, they don't make every single item by hand that they sell. Again, it's gotten to the point where that's not possible. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about how much time goes into a sewn item. This is not like a t-shirt you get at H&M for $5 that's made overseas and it's considered fast fashion. And by the way, if you have not seen John Oliver's Last Week Tonight segment on fast fashion, I would highly encourage you to check it out. I will link it below. And I'll also link to my Quiltonomics article so you can read the interviews. But again, if you don't know a lot about sewing and quilting, it takes so much time and so much effort to make even one thing that the price you would have to set for that item would be a lot higher than something you would get at like Walmart or Target. It's just because of the manpower and the labor. So it's really what you're paying for. So if you're offering to pay someone for the materials, that's kind of like a slap in the face. Many people might not say that to your face, but that's the reality of it, is that the labor cost of making something by hand is so much higher than just the supplies. So I was kind of thinking about it, and the reason I'm talking about this now is because the other night I was having a conversation with someone, and she seemed to really appreciate quilts and just the art making that goes into it and the design process. And I was actually telling her a little bit about Susie Williams, and I was like, you know, she kind of stopped selling quilts because if she did, she'd have to sell them for like $1,000 and up for it to even remotely be worth her time. And this gal, who again I could tell at least appreciated handmade things, she's like, wow, that's really high. So again, most people just don't know that in order for someone to sell quilts and have it actually be a lucrative real business, like if I were to sell this quilt after I make it, I would have to charge $2,000 to $4,000 for it to even remotely be a possibility for me to do that as a business. If I could sell quilts for $10,000 a piece, I would maybe seriously think about doing that as a side business. But with there being such a price disparity, I really could never do that. And I think that's sad because I love quilting, I love sewing. If it could be a real, legit business, you know, I would look more into it. But as far as selling things, and again, there are some very well-known quilters who are able to command those prices. But here's what's hurting craftsmen and craftswomen overall, and that's the folks that are undercutting them. Now, I know a lot of you who may have an Etsy shop may not be in a position, you know, it could be just a hobby where you're trying to make extra money. And if that's you, I would really, really implore you to maybe think about your prices. A lot of the things I see on Etsy, I feel like they're priced too low for what they are. Like if I see a quilt for $75, they can't possibly be, if it is really a handmade item, these people can't possibly be covering the time that they're putting into each project and paying themselves a decent hourly wage. It just does not seem possible. So again, if that is you, I would really encourage you to think about raising your prices. Because one, you need to value yourself as a maker. And two, because when you're pricing things so low, you're hurting other people in your industry that are really legitimately trying to make a living at it. Now, again, I don't make my money by sewing and quilting. If I could, I think I would definitely look more seriously into it. But I'm not sewing and quilting for money, and I think a lot of people who sew and quilt are not doing it because they need money or because they're trying to sell things. So I really just wanted to start a conversation about this because I think it's something that more people need to talk about, and I think it's also something that if you're not really into sewing and quilting, you really don't know anything about it. So it's really not anyone's fault, or it's, you know, not, you know, I mean, I didn't know anything about it either until I really started getting into it. So if you'd like to learn more about the quilt pricing and more about online selling of crafts, I would encourage you to check out my Quiltonomics article, and I'll also link a few other articles that have inspired me over the years and really fascinated me and I find very interesting. But I think pricing of sewn items is a really hot button issue for folks that are in the industry and for folks like me who make things but don't sell them. So just wanted to take a few minutes to chat, and if you like this video, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. Maybe I'll do another rant in the future, who knows, but it's just something that weighs on my heart so heavily. I really felt I needed to talk about it. So I'll see you next time. I'm Jennifer Moore.